From the creators who brought you RuPaul's Drag Race and $1 Million Listing, this is World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Wow Report, where we count down the top 10 things of the week that made us go,
wow.
No, this is Tom Campbell.
Hello. It's good to be here. It's good to be with people I love and trust and feel a kinship with today.
That is beautifully said. I feel the same way too. And James St. James, of course, Jimmy St. Jimmy, as I want to.
Yes, well, we are all fans today, and we are all holding hands and taking care of each other.
Yeah, we kind of made a choice today, right? We are going to talk about the election later on, but instead of just going on and on about it, I sort of suggested, and if you got just to talk about things that make us happy, our favorite things, like Oprah's favorite, our favorite things, not for sale, but just that lift us up when we're down.
The only things I like are things that are for sale, but
that's okay too.
But I'm on board with the theme. Let's do it. Let's start at number 10. Tom, show us the way.
Number 10.
This is a somber thing, but it's not, because it's a celebration of his life. Quincy Jones passed away since last we met at 91 years old. It is nearly impossible to summarize in any amount of time his contribution to music in the 20th and 21st centuries. He was a composer. He was a conductor. He was an arranger. He was a producer. He's won 28 Grammys, the third most of anyone. First is Beyonce, because I thought you might ask for 32. The second is George Solti, who's a Hungarian-British conductor who has 31.
Oh, George Solti, of course, yes.
Yes, but he's worked with Dinah Washington, Ray Charles, who, by the way, he met when he was 14. Ray Charles was 16, lifelong friends. Frank Sinatra, Leslie Gore, it's my party, and I'll cry if I want to. James Ingram, he discovered. Patty Austin, one of the most beautiful voices of all time. George Benson, Chaka Khan, Tevin Campbell, Lena Horne, Diana Ross. We Are the World, he conducted. Soul Bossa Nova, the Austin Powers thing. Bump, ba-dum, ba-dum, bump. And that's just sort of the pop ones. There's, all of these jazz greats that he also worked with. The pop music stuff really resonates with me. He also composed soundtracks for Roots, one of the most watched shows of all time. The Color Purple, heard of that? In the Heat of the Night, They Call Me Mr. Tibbs. Ironside theme, Sanford and Son theme. He was a producer of
Sanford and Son theme. That's interesting. And he was married to Nastasia Kinski, one of the most beautiful women.
Yes, and Peggy Lipton. He had beautiful, beautiful women in his life. There was a documentary which we talked about a while ago that's on Netflix, and I would highly recommend seeing Quincy. It's not just his output; it's the way he interpreted life. At one point, he was talking about how you have to let God into a recording. Like, you can have the best musicians, the best songwriters, the best vocalists. He goes, but you have to sort of leave, 20% just for spirit to come in, and he also talked about you can't have a big ego if you have bigger dreams, because you'll never achieve what you want. And there's just a couple of other quotes. I did this the day he died, but it's the attitude about life, man, looking at the light instead of the dark, looking at love instead of fear, which the arts and music and that kind of celebration is what's going to help us get through, I think, these next few days, these next few weeks, these next few years, these next few decades. I don't know. He also had this thing that every country can be defined through their food, their music, and their language. That's the soul of a country. So politics is huge. Politics is a devastating blow to what we can accomplish in our freedoms, but we do have our food and our music and our language and the art of resistance. I hate to use that word all over again. And of course, I left off, the Michael Jackson.
Right. I
legacy.
mean, that was Off the Wall, right? That was a sort of
Off the Wall, Thriller and Bad, sold 46 million copies in the US alone, probably double that around the world. And it's not just listing his accomplishments defeats the purpose of what he left us, which is just so much vastly jazz, pop. He had a falling out with Michael Jackson because Michael Jackson didn't like rap. He said rap's where we're going, and he traces rap to Africa, and in a very elegant way that I can't. And this one album I would say to pick up or listen to stream is Back on the Block. It came out in 1989, and it was his album, and it featured Ella Fitzgerald, Miles Davis, Ice-T, Luther Vandross, Barry White, Chaka Khan, and Tevin Campbell, who he discovered. And it's this beautiful, I listened to it for years, and I'm listening to it again. Now, Fenton, you went to his house once.
I did. I wasn't going to tell the story because Brian Grazer, Leonardo DiCaprio, Naomi Campbell, and
you.
I was like, what am I doing here? You know,
that was a hell of a group. What were you
went
there
to
for?
Meet Naomi Campbell, as I recall, about a project. And she was in LA. And what a lot of these people did, Leonardo DiCaprio, when they were in LA, they hung out at Quincy's place in Bel Air.
I was very struck by the fact that Brian Grazer just wandered off in the middle of the meeting and made himself some scrambled eggs. I was like, who does that? I mean, no judgment, but just I was like, gosh, I guess these people must really just know each other and hang out all the time.
No, that's hot. That's a great story.
It's a great story. And, you know, there's the Soho House and all the fake pretentious places. No, you had to be at Quincy's. You know,
it's a little bit like having lunch with Liz Taylor in the Sandy Gallon.
Yes, but that he created this community. It's like the World of Wonder without the scrambled eggs, really. It's like a place where we all come together and let our freak flag fly.
Blake, I think Blake's going to cut this all out because he's telling us to move on to Rest in Perfection, Quincy Jones. Number 9, James.
Number 9.
I really just love a hokey Hallmark holiday movie. It is cinematic pablum for these stressed out times. You know, there's always a formula that they follow. She is a stressed out big city woman who is stranded in a quirky small town over the holidays where she falls in love. Or he's like a handsome widower who is struggling to find love again, and they find it when he's trapped at a ski chalet over the holidays. Well, I watched 2 of them when I was spiraling on Voters' Night. The first was called A Merry Scottish Christmas, and it stars Lacey Chabert and Scott Wolf as estranged siblings who are brought together by their mother at a Scottish castle, which has been turned into a bed and breakfast, only to discover that the Scottish castle is their ancestral home. Their mother was supposed to be a duchess, but she ran off with a rock star in the 60s. And so over the course of the show, he decides he's going to give up his medical practice and become the next duke, and she falls in love with a quirky groundskeeper and decides to stay there, blah, 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 blah.
But Lady Chatterley's lover.
But the wink, wink, wink of it all is that Lacey Chabert and Scott Wolf played brothers and sisters in Party of 5 in the 90s. So this is like, once again, sort of that pablum for 90s children. The other one was called A Biltmore Christmas, and it was filmed at the famed Biltmore Estate in Pennsylvania. And it's the story of a screenwriter who is charged with updating a 1940s classic called His Merry Wife. And she can't quite get it right. And the studio head says, why don't you go to Biltmore for Christmas to get the feeling for the movie? And she goes there, and when she goes there, she's accidentally thrown back in time to the making of the movie, where she falls in love with the leading man, and she goes back and forth in time and has to decide which time she's going to live in. And it's hokey, and it was probably written by AI. It is just, they're absolutely dreadful, but you get to spend time at the Biltmore Estates in this Irish castle.
I read that these are the fan favorite Hallmark movies.
They are. They're all on Netflix. Netflix is streaming all the holiday Hallmark movies. So if you just go to Netflix, it is just one after the other, and you can just eat them like popcorn.
Number 8.
For those of you watching on our YouTube channel episode, I'm holding up one of these nerd gummy clusters to the screen. It is like a small asteroid, tiny asteroid, a fragment of an asteroid, or looks like a piece of granola, right?
Well, no, it looks like one of the Wonka things, like one of those Wonka ones. The everlasting gobstopper.
Well, funny you mentioned that.
Chewing on air, delicious.
Now you have mouthgasm. Here's a packet. I actually got you each a packet. Nerd gummy clusters. So it is a combination of nerds. And remember what nerds are? They came out in 1982 from the Willy Wonka candy factory.
Oh, there you go.
which no longer exists. I didn't know that, but had a brief moment. But yeah, they launched Nerds, and they were like tiny, crunchy tart candies that came in a box, the little things. And they were bought out in 2018. And this was a yesterday brand. They did something like 50 million in sales in 1 year. This year alone, the Nerds Gummy cluster has done $500 million in sales. And all it is a gummy with nerds wrapped around the outside. It is a nerd gummy cluster. And there's been very serious articles about this in the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. And I have to say, I ordered, because I sold out everywhere. So I ordered them on Amazon, and they are delicious because, James, they are tangy and crunchy on the outside, sweet and gummy on the inside.
Well, I do have to say something about this, that there have been studies that psychopaths and sociopaths have a tendency to go towards sour candies. And it's, I don't know if you remember, but Michael Ehrlich was obsessed with Sour Patch and Nerds. He was just, that's all he
I'm not at all.
Those like popcorn.
I'm not obsessed. No.
So I wonder what this is saying about you. I also wonder what's really going on at your house, because your dogs have gone berserk. And are you chopping up someone in the background, or
I think he's actually coming to us from the Humane Society?
Yeah.
Like all good psychopaths, James, as I'm munching my sour candy, I'm dismembering a body. Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. What is going on? Can you just tell us
Multitasking.
what's happening with your dogs? Why are they gone berserk?
I'm doing a little work in the garden. I'm not burying a body. I'm doing a little land. Anyway, back to the Nerd Gummy cluster. I have to tell you, they are delicious because they are this perfect combination of sour and sweet. I had to laugh because these articles take it so seriously. They actually filed a patent application, and it's defined as a springy, resilient character with varying degrees of firmness, combined with generally ovoid, spherical, or bean-shaped candies. For a multi-sensorial textural experience.
I love when they do think pieces about just like nothing.
Right, pieces about nothing. But I offered Tom Campbell in the office the other day some, and he was absolutely not.
I'm trying to be very healthy.
Yeah. James, would you eat a
I don't think my veneers would allow it. I think I
just have to point out, I've known Fenton and worked with Fenton for 20 years, and I've never seen you, and I've had many meals with you. I've never seen you consume more food in one sitting than you just did during the segment with those gummy nerdy things. And I'm worried about your sugar spike and what's going to happen through the rest of the show.
It's a psychopath. I know. Watch out! I'm gonna transform into a nerd gummy cluster monster. I think
Michael Ehrlich, the spirit of Michael Ehrlich, has possessed you.
Last thing I will say on this topic is that Kylie Jenner is credited with creating the boom because she ate some and raved about them, and the rest is history.
So we still have the Kardashians to lean back on in these tough times.
When all else fails. All right, let's take a break. Blake, have you got a question?
I do. What do you call a male turkey?
Well, we know this.
I'm not going to step into that one. We'll have the answer for you right here on the Wow Report after the break.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. It's Fenton here with James and Tom and Blake.
Yes, and we're coming up onto the Thanksgiving season. And so I asked, what do you call a male turkey?
Well, can I say?
Yes.
It's a tom.
Tom turkey.
Yeah.
It's a gobbler.
Do you eat gobblers? Is it the turkey generally that you eat at Thanksgiving? Is it a male or a female, or is it not?
Because you don't eat a rooster, you eat a chicken, and you don't eat a bull, you eat a cow.
I don't think we're allowed to ask anymore.
I don't
Depends
know
on what their pronouns are.
Yeah.
It's a good question. That'll be great for our Thanksgiving show. We'll do a lot of research between now and then.
I do want to just tell you that over at Wow Presents Plus this weekend, you will be able to get Wow Now, which is the linear channel, completely free, thanks to Tom Campbell's brilliant idea. we thought it was, a slightly somewhat bleak
The
moment.
community that slays together stays together. And so stop doom scrolling, as Fenton said, and start streaming Wow Now. And you can watch all this content for free, just because it's I don't know about you guys, I'm having trouble like watching TV or plugging back in. So why not escape through the magic and the love and the joy and the community of RuPaul's Drag Race and all things drag?
Because Wow Now is a looping channel of every episode from every franchise in Drag Race history. We're counting down the top 10 things a week that makes go wow. Like, what is our theme title, Tom? It's like
Lovely. Our favorite
things. It's like Oprah's favorite things, except no one gets anything for free. Number 7.
Number 7.
This is something I've loved. In my high school yearbook, you used to have like, you put your nickname. Mine was Tom Soup Big Head Stud. I added Stud. And it was likes.
Tom Soup Big Head Stud?
Soup, Big Head, or Stud. Those are my nicknames. I added Stud. I figured no one would know years from now.
Why do people call you Soup?
Because of Campbell.
Oh.
And my likes were procrastination, fudge, and seedless grapes. And I still love to this day a seedless grape. Because I've been trying to watch my weight, I'm doing food delivery, and my cheat, I have some celery and carrots, but I have a colander with rinsed seedless grapes. And I go to that refrigerator a million times a night. I admit it. But instead of getting something huge, I have a seedless grape or two. And it's like candy. It's this explosion. It's so exciting. Fenton, you
should put water in the bowl in the fridge with the grapes in it so they stay plump and really extra juicy. Because you don't like it when your grapes get a little wrinkly.
Okay.
A little soft.
I eat them a lot. So with that, knowing when we thought like, what are my favorite things? The first thing that came to mind was like seedless grapes. They're like my obsession now. Like I'm happy. I speak to them. When I open the refrigerator, I'm like, oh, hello. So it took me down a seedless grape hole, and I'm taking you with me.
I'm coming down that seedless grape hole. You know what I would also do with the seedless grape? I would probably inject nerds into it. So it feels like it's got little pips, but they're nerds.
It sounds like something Rob Kardashian would do. Not my favorite Kardashian. Now, I'm just going to take you down my fact wormhole here, which is good because usually the things you like, when you look them up, it's like, oh, they're really bad for you. But seedless grapes and regular seeded grapes are nutritionally about the same. Health benefits. Grapes are rich in polyphenols, which may help heart health, blood pressure management, eye protection, I don't understand that, and preventing cancer and constipation. They are a source of fiber, and they're 80% water, so they can help you stay hydrated. And then a question was asked online, which I'd never thought, which was, have you ever wondered, how do seedless grapes exist and continue to exist?
Reproduce? Yes. How do they manage to keep the line going?
Thankfully, not a GMO story, but most fruits we eat are just clones of other fruit. So most fruits that are including seedless grapes are propagated through clippings, snap.
Oh.
So rather than following the tradition angiosperm method, who puts that in their mouth, of reproducing seeds, having fruit covering those seeds, having birds eat them, having them poop them out, having them go into the dirt, having them magically grow fruits, rather than that, to reproduce a seedless grape plant, you take a cutting, dip it in a rooting hormone, and then you stick it in warm soil and you water it profusely. The next question you ask is, well, where did the original seedless grape come from? I knew that was coming out of your mouth, James. They think that along the lines, someone noticed some grapes that didn't produce seeds so well. And they must have thought, I could cash in on this genetic defect and let's keep propagating this one grape. So
and now it's $1 billion industry.
Yes, all seedless grapes today are descendants or clones of that original freak of nature.
No,
that is so interesting.
And they also say that seedless grapes actually do have seeds. They've just mutated in a way that the seeds don't have hard shells, so you don't choke them when you eat. And before you get scared, they are not GMO. They are not genetically modified by scientists. This genetic modification happens naturally by a thing called nature.
Well, it's interesting because I have some green grapes around all the time too, and I find that they're brain food. And if I'm stuck on a problem or if I can't think of something, I pop a grape, and instantly my brain cells light up, and I'm able to make the connection that I'm trying to get.
So I take it you don't eat any grapes before the show. Last thing is that seedless grapes became very popular in the 1980s when imported Chilean grapes ruined the market for domestic late season grapes. So Trump could ruin all this. And today, more than 90% of grapes consumed in California are seedless, and they date as far back as ancient Rome. Okay, that's I told you I went deep.
Ancient Rome, the original.
They've been doing this since ancient Rome.
Wow.
Someone found those mutated
I thought
grapes.
it was like the 1950s or something that they came about.
Well, they've grown in popularity and the shipping and all that kind of stuff, but I guess ancient Romans had seedless grapes.
I believe everything you've just said, but I don't believe that you've never had an angiosperm in your mouth.
Hey, who's Angio?
Have you ever had a grapple, Tom?
No.
It is an apple that has been bred with a grape, and it tastes of grape, but it's an apple.
That's devil's candy right there. I don't truck with that nonsense.
That's where mad cow disease comes from. Things like that.
Yes, that was a Wu-Tan, like a laboratory.
Stop eating bats and grapples.
Dr. Fauci, yes.
God. Well, speaking of the devil, it's number 666, James.
Number 6.
I love a biography. I love just reading biographies and autobiographies. As you can see behind me, 9/10 of what I read is usually a biography. I just read a really great one called Radiant, The Life and Line of Keith Haring by Brad Gooch, which came out this spring. I knew Keith a little bit. I knew him, it was more just hello, James, hello, Keith. We didn't have a lot to talk about. We didn't really vibe together, but I was there at a lot of his gallery openings that are mentioned in the book. I know about the Club 57 days, at the Paradise Garage days. Of course, I lived at the Palladium, which he and Basquiat and Kenny Scharf helped design. I knew a lot of the stories. I knew a lot of the boys that he hung out with. It's a fascinating book once it gets into the weeds of it. There's a lot of gossip that I didn't know about. I remember a story about he took this boy, Willie Rivera, over to Madonna's house, and Madonna snatched Willie from him, and that became a bone of contention, and their friendship never survived after that. When she took his guys,
that would be a boner of contention.
There's a lot of fun stuff that you will enjoy, Fenton, where as he gets more and more famous in the 80s and his head starts to turn a little bit with the fame and the money, Warhol and Basquiat roll their eyes at him all over and over again because he's such a social climber. He's such a fame whore, which is so rich coming from Andy and Jean-Michel, who are the ultimate fame whores and social climbers, that they would look down on him for that.
Was he a chatty Cathy? I mean,
no, he wasn't. In fact, he had this sort of a saint-like quality about him, or a childlike quality, where he would just sort of walk into a room and everyone would sort of gather around him, and he would just sort of like say little sort of Michael Jackson-y, sort of like he would just say like little oblique things here and there, but everyone just like it was the word of God, the word of the gospel coming down from the high mountain. And it's a fascinating book, and it's very well written by Brad, and we are going to be talking to Brad Gooch about Keith on an upcoming episode of Night Fever season 5.
Don't you wonder what would have happened if he had lived? Like what kind of an artist he would be?
Well, it's funny because I see there were cracks in his legacy happening at the time of his death, where people were saying that there was a period in the 80s where it was just very derivative and it was just the same thing over and over and over again, that he wasn't really growing. He did have in his final days, in his ACT UP days, when he was addressing AIDS and doing all that stuff, his art was changing, but how much could it have really changed? And would he be like considered like Peter Max or somebody like that who was just considered like an illustrator. Like, I mean, would his life, the reason why he and Jean-Michel are so the price, is because there's a finite number. There's only a finite number. It ends, and so someone like Kenny Scharf, who has gone on for the last 40 years after their deaths, his prices aren't there yet, but it's just because they only had that limited output. I'm, wearing a t-shirt right now, but I think he's probably the most recognizable artist on the planet right now. I think more so than Warhol and Basquiat. I think
so. And I think his work defines it captures that spirit of that moment, right?
It captures the spirit of the 80s, but it instantly connects with kids and teenagers in a way that other art does not.
I love how they license it so freely because it lives everywhere at the Gap or at the Uniqlo or
And I think he would have loved that. I think would have been. I think Warhol was very jealous because in the beginning when he was doing the subway paintings and he got the idea to put the Radiant Baby on a button and give the buttons away wherever he was, and Warhol was furious about that and so jealous that he understood branding in a way that Warhol could not get the kids to do.
And Keith Haring opened the pop shop before he died, didn't he?
He did. It was in 1988, I think, and I was there the opening night of it. And I have some things from it. But yeah, and that was something that was frowned upon in the art community before, because he wasn't really accepted in museums and stuff for a long, long time. He was considered like, sort of a dilettante in the art world or whatever, because he was not taken seriously. But then, now look at him. Now look at them all frothing. They were.
I can't wait to hear your Night Fever episode with Brad Gooch.
Well, you will be a part of it, my dear.
Yeah. Number 5. Segue. The Radiant Baby is on all fours. And this isn't really a favorite thing, but I was, as occasionally Zoom meetings veer off track and you end up telling stories. So I casually told this story about how when I was 16 years old, I broke the world crawling record on my hands and knees. And, it was in the context of some sort of, basic idea that we're all crawling all our lives. It's just like, it's an existential moment. And, but while on the Zoom, Colin, who is a fantastic archive researcher, pulled up this article from the Reading Evening Post in the newspaper, because I think people thought I was just bullshitting and making it up. And he shared this article in the Zoom chat of me on all fours breaking the world crawling record.
I think it's safe to say that you being all fours is one of your favorite things.
Now tell us the story tell us the backstory.
Well, the backstory is every year at boarding school, they would do a charity fundraiser, and you would do things like make cups of tea for senior boys and go into their bedrooms, studies early in the morning.
Oh, wow.
I know, it was quite a thing. And you get like threepence for every cup of tea, and you'd raise money for charity. That was the whole idea. And one year I thought, well, I'm not going to do that. I want to do something, more. So I decided to I was like, what record could I break and what could I do? And I thought, I would break the world crawling record. And I raised the money for the local mental hospital or facility, which was called Wayland's. I don't know if you would ever call a mental facility Wayland.
You wouldn't even call it a mental facility anymore. That's the great thing.
That's absolutely right. And it was a very kind of gothic, it really was, towers and stone and forbidding place. Because I didn't want to do it, because the other thing we had to do at boarding school was you had to choose an armed service. You could go into the Army, or the Navy, or the Air Force, and you had to put on a uniform and run around with bayonets. And I just hated it. The other thing you could do is community service volunteers, which was basically considered what the gays did because they were just sort of flibbertigibbet. So I did community service volunteers because I was sort of pacifist.
I love the word flibbertigibbet, by the way. Can we just pause for a second with that? Yeah, you are a flibbertigibbet.
Here.
Thank you so much. And I ran a disco at the local And so when the charity drive came up, I was like, I'm going to do the world crawling record. I'm going to raise money for Wayland's for the disco. And I raised, I think it says in the article, £25, which is about $35. And someone stole my tin cup. Someone stole the money while I was going round and round and round. It took all day.
Wait a minute. Okay. So how do you prepare for this? And what happened to your knees? And how long did you go? And how many rounds around the school did you do?
It took all day. And it became dark while I was doing it. And it was rainy and cold. And I wrapped, I had gloves on, and I wrapped things around my knees. And
did it hurt?
It wasn't pleasant at all, I have to say. I mean, I have no idea how I did it. And then, like, it gets worse, this story, because, you know, the Guinness Book of World Records, they have to attend to certify the actual. The fuckers didn't show up. So they're like, well, Mr. Bailey, I don't know that you have. So, but anyway, thanks to Colin, I have this article that when I'm feeling a little blue, I just pull it up and have a look and like, yeah, I did.
Oh, wait a minute. Did they certify you ultimately?
No, I don't think I ever did. No.
It's never too late, Fenton. It's never too late.
But the newspaper was there. They can verify to them.
That's true, right? It's very true.
I think you should go back and see if anyone's broken your record.
Well, okay, I'm going to do some research over the break. And when we come back, Blake, do you have a question?
I do. So the reason I asked about the turkey earlier is because I just pulled up, you know, some fall trivia. Mm-hmm. And I thought this was a really interesting. In colonial times, we were talking about apples earlier. What were apples called?
We'll have your answer right after the break on the Wow Report.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. I'm Fenton here with Tom and James and Blake.
And I asked, in colonial times, what did they call apples?
Satan's candy.
Pears.
Something like, it must be something biblical. Because it was the apple in the tree of knowledge.
Yeah.
No, they called them winter bananas.
No, they did not.
Or a melt in the mouth.
A melt in the mouth. But bananas were discovered.
Winter bananas. Winter bananas are melted in your mouth. It's so filthy. I don't know.
I got your winter banana right here, baby.
No. Okay, Tom, you're going to melt in our mouths now with number 4.
Number 4.
We're talking about the top 10 things that our favorite things that make us go wow in times of stress. And I just recommend you all have your own special thing, but listen to music. I have not been listening to NPR in the morning. I have not been watching the news at night. And my go-to right now, and I recommend for those of you who want a suggestion, is the dulcet tones, the amazing, powerful voice of Miss Eydie Gormé, famous as the husband and wife, Steve Lawrence and Eydie Gormé. You can listen to them both, but Eydie, I've been obsessed with, and I'll make it easy for you. Obviously, you can say, Alexa, play Eydie Gormé singing in Spanish, and you will get all of her Spanish language songs. Eydie Gormé, if you don't know, I'm so angry at you, but she and her husband, Steve Lawrence, were in the 50s. They were on the original Tonight Show. He was the boy singer. She was the girl singer. Nothing radical. They married, and they had a partnership on stage, on television, at Vegas. They were one of Vegas's biggest acts. They toured with Sinatra at the end, and they never could have cracked into superstardom, but they were hot. They were great, and they're great together. They had a lot of fun. They could sort of entertain you. They were one of the Vegas's biggest acts. But Eydie has one of the most impressive, like a not Streisand's voice, but like on the level of Streisand or Adele, like one of the great voices of all time. She could belt, she could sing, and she has Amor, which was in 1963. I think she grew up in a house that she was Jewish, but they were from like Spain or something, so they spoke Spanish in the house. So she didn't speak Spanish fluently, but she sang it beautifully. Later, Linda Ronstadt would do that. Linda never makes that connection. I always do. And there's one of her many, 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 many albums called "Don't Go to Strangers," which is people talk about. I think Sinatra's "In the Wee Small Hours of the Morning" is the ultimate breakup album for men. It's just like one one tort song after another. Don't Go to Strangers has the songs What Did I Have That I Don't Have, What's New, If He Walks Into My Life, one song after another, orchestrated by Don Costa, the most amazing arrangements. And Eydie Gormé was like what I imagine Michael Jordan was like. People watch basketball. She can sing without breathing. she can like, because Michael Jordan used to jump and move in the air, and people were just like, oh my God, that's Eydie Gormé's voice in 1966. She won the Grammy for Best Female Vocalist in 1966. Again,
is there a greatest hits or something that we should be doing?
Well, don't go. You just play Eydie, where everything's greatest hits online, but don't go to. If you can listen to "Don't Go to Strangers," I actually will troll the World of Wonder Wow Report YouTube channel and put in links in the comments. I think I come up with Wow Celebrity.
Do in your spare time?
I will today. I will this week. Because anyone here, this is Fenton comes to the office on occasion, but anyone who comes here regularly, as soon as I get them trapped in a meeting and there's a minute, I play Eydie Gormé, Eydie Gormé song. So that's the joy.
You know why I didn't go in. That's
yeah, exactly. I know. But again, pick your own, make your own kind of music, but find something that fills your soul. Eydie Gormé is doing it for me right now.
James, number 3.
Number 3.
Well, in these times, we need a little Christmas right this very minute.
Just had a lot of Christmas. You just been Christmas movies.
Well, but I feel the holidays this year. I feel we need them more than anything.
I buy that.
And when I was growing up, my mother, we would always get the Neiman Marcus catalog every year. And we've talked about this on the show. And we would sit around the fire and read the Neiman Marcus offerings and laugh and laugh and laugh, because it was always like, take a blimp ride from Provence to Capri with Andrea Bocelli for $900,000. And every year they just have these ridiculous things. And I just wanted to read you 3 of them this year that they have. One of them is you win a VIP style experience with Marilyn Fatoussi. Set the scene with you and your closest confidant arrive for a 3-day night stay at a luxurious Parisian hotel, a glamorous style experience with Marilyn Fatoussi herself. Marilyn Fatoussi is the costume designer for Emily in Paris. And she is going to take you shopping for $175,000. She will take you around to the shops that she loves in Paris, and you can shop with her. And then you get to have lunch with her and do a professional photo shoot with the clothes that you've bought. And then you get a $25,000 shopping voucher for you and your companion, and she will end up styling 2 ensembles for you. Okay, that's one of them.
Can we get a Wow Report catalog and have like experience of the James St. James for like $40?
Judith Lieber crystal mahjong set that's really spectacular. That's $20,000. But then there's an 18th century royal caleche for $1,900,000. And I don't know if you know what a royal caleche is.
I don't. I do not.
It's a baby buggy from like the 17th century with these sort of gorgeous pictures drawn, painted on the sides. It's gold and everything. $1,900,000 that belonged to King Charles III, who was the grandfather of King Louis XIV, I believe. Another quick one is you get a Manolo Blahnik shopping experience for $55,000, where you go to London with you and a friend. During your stay, you go to the original Manolo Blahnik boutique, where you have tea with Christina Blahnik, the CEO, his daughter. And then you get 2 pairs of shoes custom made for you that may or may not have your initials on them. And then you get a guided tour of the factory, and that's for $55,000.
May I ask you a dumb question?
Yes.
How does one get the catalog? Do you shop there? Does it come to you? Do you have to purchase it? Do you have to order it? How do you get the actual physical catalog?
I think you have to be someone, Tom.
That's why I had to ask.
That's why I had to ask. Getting the catalog. I don't think anyone can get the catalog.
I don't either. That's why I asked. outside my experience.
Number two.
Number two.
I don't know. Do you get on your phones a little alert telling you every week how much time on average you spend a day on your phone?
Yes.
Well, I want to share that I broke a record, another record, a world record.
Oh, good for you.
12 hours on my freaking phone in one day. Like I wasn't even awake for 12 hours. So, but it led me to, I mean, a lot of the time I am doom scrolling, yes, but I also read books on my iPhone, and to make it sound like I'm productive.
Yes, you read.
And I also, I just subscribe to The Atlantic because I'm fed up with all the mainstream media, like the New York Times and the Washington Post and the LA Times. I've ditched them all, deleted them.
Me too.
And then I started finding these articles on The Atlantic were kind of interesting. So I subscribed. And the first article that comes through is, and this is the interactive segment of the show, it's what did we ever do before smartphones? And it asks, like, what did we, I just spent 12 hours in a day on it, but what did we do before? What did you do, Tom?
I've seen pictures of the New York subway, and everyone has a magazine or a book.
Right.
I remember having books in my commode next to in my bathroom, and I would read like the Andy Hurl diaries between my feet, my ankles. And I watched a lot of TV.
James,
I think we would go outside and touch grass. I think we actually had lives and would go out and do.
You lived in Manhattan.
That's a lie.
I did a lot of K. I did a lot of cocaine.
Blake, what did you do before smartphones?
I was probably in school. I got my first smartphone like literally when I moved to LA. So I remember phones before that would gradually your phone would have a camera on it, and then your phone could like play music.
Right.
But, yeah.
That's right. I mean, the first sort of experience that this writer talks about, Ian Bogost, he writes about getting the Crackberry, the BlackBerry, and how exciting
you and Randy loved your Crackberry.
Loved it. I mean, James, you know, I've been a screen junkie as long as they've been around, and in this article, he says he asked a lot of his friends, and he came to it. No one can remember what they did before smartphones. And people like James, you know, tell big porcupines about going outdoors and picking flowers and doing productive things. But he's got a whole theory that actually they relieved our terror of monotony, and that before smartphones, we had magazines in dentists' offices.
Yes.
And we would read the ads on the subway, or we'd read the back of the shampoo bottle or the cereal box.
Yes.
Do anything. And it made me appreciate it. I was suddenly like, yeah, you know, the smartphone is a good thing.
We've always been looking for information and things to distract
I mean,
us.
now people don't. It used to be a big terror to go eat by yourself, but now you just go eat by yourself and look at your phone the whole time, and nobody thinks twice about it. But people would not go to anywhere by themselves.
I will make the argument though that it's gone. We're still old school. We kind of use our phones like books or magazines, but a lot of people just use it for almost the you know, it's growing toward like artificial intelligence and reality. You know, what do they call it?
Augmented reality.
Yes, because no one look. I just miss people looking up and looking at you when you walk by them. That's all. Like, just not even flirting, but just like acknowledging that another human soul is walking beside you.
I find it sort of a tangential conversation. Is that I find when I talk to young people now, I have to ask if they have a TV, because most young people don't have TVs anymore. They just watch everything on their tablets. They don't bother to invest in which is something that is like, I cannot in my wildest dreams ever have a place without a TV.
All right, we're going to take one more break. And I just want to remind you that Wow Presents Plus is free all this weekend. You can watch Drag Race España. You can watch Drag Race Philippines. You can watch RuPaul's Drag Race UK. You can watch Drag Race Thailand. And coming very soon, Drag Race Down Under with Michelle Visage hosting. So you just sign up at wowpresentsplus.com, but it is free this weekend.
Wow Now,
which is the linear channel behind the paywall, but it's free this weekend.
Yes.
All right. One more break, and we'll be right back with the number one thing this week that made us go,
wow.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. Fenton here with James. and Tom and Blake, and we've been cheering ourselves up by counting down the top 10 things that don't just make us go out, but bring us joy, our favorite things. But we've reached number 1.
Number 1.
And we're going to change the tone a little bit, and you guys are going to indulge me, and please agree or disagree. But I was going to read this thing because it's food for thought regarding as we process what happened to our country on Tuesday. And this is Kevin Sessoms, who I follow, Vanity Fair, former Vanity Fair writer. I follow him on Facebook, and he took this from the page of Sarah Schulman, who is an American novelist, playwright, nonfiction writer, and a gay activist and AIDS historian. She said, I think we all know the elements that went into this defeat. The pervasive racism of Trump voters. Biden hanging on too long, so there was no primary. Gaza. The projection of problem caused by the 1% onto immigrants. The fact that when the Democrats said the economy, they meant the stock market. And when people said the economy, they meant prices. The information silos, along with an incompetent media. Fracturing on the left. The strategy of exposing Trump's flaws failed because his voters didn't really care about what kind of person he is. And this is again coming from Sarah Schulman. And as a person who has spent my life watching incompetent, mediocre men triumph, be praised and elevated over highly qualified women in every social arena, this is a familiar roadmap. Americans who voted twice for a black male president do not want a woman president, even if she is a dynastic white woman or a gun-toting member of law enforcement. So now here we are. Trump is the Trojan horse. The people really in control are the tech mafia, and they will be able to control him and Vance completely. We can anticipate quick dismantling of all regulatory elements of the public sector, the DOJ, slashing of taxes, and total climate collapse, the end of Obamacare, fluoride, vaccine, Social Security, public education, anything that is publicly administered. Again, this is from Sarah Schulman. How do I feel? Calm. It is happening. And we have to be realistic about what it is before us and face it the best we can. I remember as we endured 15 years of the AIDS crisis, the older guys of the movement repeatedly said that the Holocaust lasted 15 years and then ended. The epicenter of AIDS also shifted. Huge numbers of people who are suffering will suffer, and only some of us will come out the other side. We have to be realistic, hold on to our own thoughts and values. My motto is, don't stop yourself from doing what you think is right. Make them stop you. And I hope to keep to that along with many of you.
Fenton, you disagreed with that this morning when we were talking about it earlier.
I did, but hearing Tom read it, it makes a lot of sense. And I really, the one thing, I sort of ate my feelings while you were reading. I ate this whole bag of gummy clusters. But the one thing I profoundly disagree with is this idea that the strategy of trying to get people to care who Trump was a failure. And in fact, the idea that any strategy opposing Trump was a failure, because if people simply didn't care who he was, what kind of person he was, and voted for him, which as seems to be the case, nothing you can do or say will change it.
I get what you're saying. I don't think it's as inflammatory as you're saying. It's saying that no one cared. Right. And the part of it that I took away was the comparison. And again, this is not definitive. This is not everybody's. There's a lot more talking, but it's like, how do we cope through these next few days?
Yes. And
as we go forward, I don't want to go back to having what's his name, Mr. T. I don't want him dominating my every thought every day. I also don't want to be passive. And the idea of putting it in perspective, like maybe we have 15 years ahead of us. I don't know. I'll be around in 15 years, but I don't know. It meant a lot to me to read that. It was a calm voice. I was telling James, I'm a catastrophist, I guess, so when things go really wrong, I'm somehow calm.
I have noticed on online chatter in the left world that I inhabit online, in social media, there is a calm, and there is sort of a, well, this is what they want, and this is what they're going to get, and we're going to watch as the world falls apart, and we're going to just try and do what we can to stay together and keep and rise above it
and support each other and
support each other and everything. But this is what they want, and this is what they're going to get. And so by God, it's not mean-spirited. It's just, this is, we're in for a ride now, and the world has fundamentally changed, and we all just sort of have to find our own groove within.
Of course, according to Roy Cohn and Donald Trump, one of their tenets is to never admit defeat, even when you're defeated. So I'm not saying we do that. I'm just interesting contrast, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think you put it very well yesterday also. You said, it's important because Blake was Blake. You were like, you said you had an emotional night. And Tom said very beautifully, we've got to hold each other close, and we love each other and support each other and
together.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, maybe we should also read what Randy and Fenton wrote to World of Wonder.
Well, I thought that was AI generated.
ChatGPT.
Fenton and Randy sent to all the employees at World of Wonder saying, just to say, many of us may be experiencing some unhappy feelings right now. Today and the days ahead might seem daunting and overwhelming, but we wanted to take a moment and say how lucky we feel and how grateful we all are to be working together. We know that coming to work every day can be a chore, but your energy puts the wow in World of Wonder. Your work brings people together, celebrates individuality and creativity, and gives people so much joy. Your kindness is a source of warmth and comfort. Truly, this extended family is Santa's workshop, and you all slay in the best possible way. And what you have done, often under adverse circumstances, while it's true that have never felt as adverse or downright hostile as they feel today, this is a good moment to remember that losing is the new winning. And there's a lot that's terribly wrong in the world today, but right here, right now, in this much smaller place, there is a lot of light, a lot of love and laughter, and there will be more ahead. The Golden Girls said it best. Thank you for being a friend. Oh. And it's when I read that, I was like, well, that is the kind of world that I want to be in. That's the kind of place I want to be. That's the family I want to have, and that's the job I want to have.
And so like that's the family we do have. And I was really to wake up and realize after that dreadful night, to wake up and realize that, how lucky we are. And like you, I think I've disengaged from a lot of it. Like I've ditched the New York, because I feel the mainstream media has gamed us. And they haven't spoken the truth, not from some
for
sort
a long time now.
And it's like Trump told us who he was. Like there can be if you vote for him, you vote. You know what you're voting for.
And they turned politics into a game show. They turned it into a reality show for ratings, and they did it, and they destroyed the country in the process.
Yeah, and then the sort of weaponization of the algorithm with Tusk on X. Yeah. I'm not getting conspiracy. I was just like, enough. I'm just going to step away from that and focus on us all here and what we do. And
fight for it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, good luck, everybody.
Good luck, on your own goodbye.
Same time, same place next week, unless we've all been hauled off. But no, I'm sure we'll be here. Fingers crossed. Anyway, thank you, Tom. Thank you, James. Thank you, Blake. And thank you all for listening. Till then, go out and do something that makes the world go
wow.